Let's see. Okay, setting this up. All right. I think we are live on LinkedIn, and I think we are live on YouTube and everywhere else. So, real quick, I just wanted to ask you, how the job transition's been. I know you
It's been
started
going,
something new recently.
yeah, just a few weeks ago. It's been going pretty well. It's an interesting change because I went from like smaller company, like 30 something people, to much bigger company, and now back to smaller company.
Right,
So
right.
definitely a more hands-on role, something I really enjoy.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Thanks for tuning in. This is Design to Dev. I'm not Nico, the one who usually runs this show. I'm Elliot, but I also work with Nico on the community marketing and growth marketing team here at Zeppelin. I'd like to introduce Eugene.
Hi,
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
of course. So my name is Eugene Fedorenko. I'm a designer. I just started a new role as a principal product designer at Privy. It's an e-commerce marketing platform. And before that, I spent a couple of years at ActiveCampaign, which I joined from Wildbit, where I worked on dev tools like Postmark and Deploybot
Hmm.
for quite a long time. And aside from my job, I work on a few side projects. I published the first ever book about Figma back in 2020. While working on the book, I also started a newsletter called Figmalion, which I've been writing since 2019.
Right.
And I built and occasionally maintain a tool called Accessible Palette for building color systems with consistent lightness and contrast, as well as a couple of Figma plugins. So that's kind of like my background
Hmm.
and some of my hobbies.
Right. And we'll get to Figmalion in a sec because that's how you and I got connected.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, as more as like a designer, what are the core beliefs or experiences that have shaped you most, kind of as a designer?
So I think I spent most of my career at a pretty small team where I had to wear many hats, and that kind of shaped me into being like a generalist that I am today. So coming from that experience, I truly believe that if you have enough space and autonomy in your work, it's up to you to make your work interesting and fulfilling.
Right.
So if you care about the craft of making better products, there's
Hmm.
always countless ways to make an impact through design, copywriting, code, whatever,
Hmm.
education, collaborating with customers. So it's really up to a person to make any work interesting.
Right, right, right. Yeah. And do you feel like that do you feel like you were able to seek that out, or did you kind of get lucky early on, with some opportunities that were interesting to you?
Probably luck was a big part of it, but I think it's kind of like a general attitude.
Okay.
Also, it's like if whatever the project is, you can always find like some angles how to make it more
Mhm.
interesting to you, right? Like because of my kind of like generalist background and like doing different stuff, not it's not always some fun redesign project. Sometimes it's like building some front end or like building some changes for SEO for the website.
Mhm.
So if you are curious and go deep into details, there is still enough space to make any kind of work really fulfilling.
Right, right. So I kind of want to, move now to Figmalion, part of, I guess, another part of your fulfilling work. What's it like balancing like running a newsletter with a full-time job?
Um, it can be tricky, to be honest. So I started writing Figmalion in like late 2019, early 2020. And during that time, at my previous job at Wildbit, we actually had a 4-day work week. So I
Hmm.
had my Fridays off basically every week. And that had provided me with enough time to, tinker on side projects like
Right.
start a newsletter, write a book, all of that stuff. Now in this like 5 years, my family life changed a little bit. Like my wife is a little bit busier. Like we have a grown kid, so like between family responsibilities, it can be tricky to find time. I try to do a little bit like every day, and then I usually have like a big chunk of work with like reading and writing either on Friday evening
Mhm.
or like morning of Saturday usually.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, it's been going great so far. So, we all appreciate, all the subscribers appreciate the work you put in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to jump into this fun little game. It's like overrated or underrated. And I'm just gonna go through some things. You can tell me your quick thoughts if they're overrated, underrated. Actually, I'm gonna start with one that you just mentioned because now I'm interested. 4-day work week.
Underrated. It's great.
Underrated. That was good. You missed that?
It was fantastic time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like working for 4 days, having 3 days to yourself. It's enough time to do all the like family admin stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, have some time for family activities. Have some time for personal interest and personal hobbies. Fantastic.
Yeah, we're live on LinkedIn, so everyone needs to let their employer know. 4-day work week's the way to go. Okay, naming layers.
Underrated.
Yeah, yeah. Do
I love to keep things tidy.
Nice, nice, and that's why you've moved up the ranks to principal and product designer. AI.
I would say properly rated. It's a lot of hype, but it's for a good reason.
Okay,
It's definitely changing the way we work. So
right,
I would say properly rated.
yeah, and we'll come back to that in a second. But how about flat design?
Overrated. I
Hmm.
feel like with the transition to flat design, um, interfaces lost so many affordances and just
Hmm.
got like in general harder to use.
Hmm. Okay, this next one, maybe this probably has different responses based on when you started designing, but Adobe.
Well, I started a while ago. My
Huh,
first Photoshop was like version 4, I think.
right.
So I would still say underrated because I know
Mhm.
like design industry basically moved on from Adobe,
Right.
but they're still building some of the most powerful tools for
Hmm.
creatives.
Yeah.
And actually, I think what they've been doing was moving Photoshop to the cloud, and uh, that's really interesting. I
Mhm.
don't need this day to day, but I think the potential here is great.
Yeah, for sure. I think that if I asked that to like a brand new product design hire, they might not have ever touched Adobe. So
What's Adobe? Yeah.
yeah, I think those answers differ. I was speaking to someone from Box who's pretty senior, and he was saying the same thing. Like he was like reminiscing about Adobe. So yeah, I think that answer will differ depending on the generation of
It's
designer.
actually, I think the only product I have a subscription going on for
Oh yeah.
is Lightroom.
Okay.
I still use Lightroom for my like pictures from big
Uh-huh.
camera. I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
love
yeah.
it,
Yeah.
so that's good.
Yeah. Always got to edit the pictures with Lightroom. Sit stand desks.
Underrated. I think even if you don't stand, I have
Mhm.
a sit-stand desk, but just having this control over like height,
Yeah.
where you can, depending on your pose, like you can adjust it a little
Yeah.
bit. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, like, I definitely didn't think I'd ever use it, but if I'm ever feeling like kind of tired during the workday, if I just stand up, it's like changes everything. I can like move, I
Yeah.
can like, dance around when I work. Yeah, it's nice.
I also noticed that when I have like some, big presentation or something, and
Mm.
I am getting a little anxious, it helps to present when I'm standing.
Yeah,
It kind of like
yeah, yeah,
gives you like this energy,
right. Or
a
you feel like
place
you're
for it to
public
go.
speaking. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, definitely. Can't always be sitting down. Okay, Herman Miller.
I would say properly rated, but their stuff is legendary, and
Mhm.
I think I have like a few chairs in just in my office from them, so
Right.
that's great.
Is the one in the back Herman Miller?
I think that's a replica. Well,
Okay.
I know it's a replica, but yeah, like it's based on it, and I have like my work chair, which is like a
Yeah.
very old, probably like 20-year-old Aeron, but
Yeah.
it's very sturdy and like basically indestructible.
Yeah, well, it's good to know it lasted 20 years. I just bought this like sale chair. It's like also from Herman Miller, and I didn't think like a chair would make that big of a difference. And now when I fly back to my family's place and I sit in my Amazon Basics chair, it's not the same anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, last one is Apple Vision Pro.
I think underrated just because um, it's not as accessible and popular yet,
Hmm.
but that's obviously like a vector for direction where things will be moving on in the future.
Right, right. Okay, so we're gonna jump back into kind of some questions, more about yourself and your design to dev background. So I know you mentioned over the last like 3 years, you've gone from owning all front end development on a mid-sized product at a large company where design was entirely separated from engineering. Now you're working on a smaller product where you work closely with engineers, but you're no longer responsible for the front end. So kind of what was that transition like, I guess, is my first question.
I think it's interesting and it's very timely as well. It's also something that showed me some pros and cons of every approach.
Hmm.
Um, I've been owning kind of like all front end on Postmark and like another product, primarily because that's like just the way things were built. Like that's what I always did. But
Hmm.
also, I think front end in general, it increased in complexity so much over the last, I don't know, like 5, 10 years. It's really hard to provide the same level of expertise both in design and like React and all the JavaScript frameworks. So I'm actually pretty happy that I don't have to like control any of that anymore.
Hmm.
Now we have a team of full stack engineers who are kind of building all the front end and back end. Um, but I also learned that it's still like even if you don't like hands-on writing code, uh, it's still important to be working super closely with engineers.
Right.
Right. My previous experience was a little shifted because I was primarily working with like backend engineers, and that's like a
Hmm.
different set of challenges, right?
Right. Right.
When you write front end and you collaborate with backend engineers, it's mostly about like, can we get that data in like the most
Hmm.
performant way? How we can
Right.
like render it? What's the order of things we will receive? Um, with front end, it's a little different. And what I realized when I was working on a larger team where design was like very disconnected from engineering is that I I really missed like making decisions together. I think
Hmm.
it saves a ton of time when designers and engineers can just like figure stuff out like right in
Right.
the moment,
Yeah.
instead of like creating some versions and then just passing them later on.
Hmm. Yeah. I've heard it's beneficial to have like, your engineers involved in the design process as early as possible, if not at
Yeah.
the very beginning, because then you don't run into anything where you throw something over the wall, right? And then it comes back and it's like, we couldn't do that in the first place, or we didn't have
Yeah.
the allocation for that. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that
that's exactly my case. Like I usually do like multiple passes. So I would start like
Hmm.
super early sketches, and I would show them to people and like get their feedback, and then I would kind of like iterate and increase fidelity of my work and like keep
Right.
them involved with every cycle, and
Hmm.
that's where like all the details kind of like show up because. Um, I think but it's all feedback is good feedback, right? And they
Hmm.
have a lot of internal knowledge and
For
internal
sure.
understanding of how the system works.
Right.
So yeah, I like to work with engineers kind of like in parallel, basically
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same thing instead of like design happens first and then we just pass it to
For
engineers
sure.
and designers work on something else.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking, of your engineers, you mentioned, I think now you said you're working with full stack engineers, right? What
Yeah.
is your relationship with those developers, and what do you think could be improved?
So to be honest, like that's still something I'm trying to figure it out as it's like a new company. I just joined like a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
Uh, what I like so far is that we work very collaboratively.
Hmm.
So basically, all the decisions are getting made like through the day in Slack, in Figma. Like if they see something that doesn't make sense, they would drop a comment or ask a question. If I have some concern, like I would ask them for their opinion and kind of like integrate it back into my mockups.
Hmm.
Um, so because it's like a smaller team and it's like this very close work, we actually don't have this like formal handoff process where like,
Right.
oh, this stuff is ready for implementation.
Hmm.
Now it's your turn to do the work. No, it's just like we work on the same stuff continuously.
Hmm.
Um, I I try to keep an eye on basically everything that gets built, like in staging. Just if something doesn't make sense to me, I would again like ask questions or provide feedback. And I think coming from having some like engineering background, it makes it easier to jump in and help with some smaller stuff. So, for example, if I want to like work on some animation, some transition, it may be easier for me to make it like writing code than to try to prototype it in Figma and then pass it to engineers and then make sure that like all the timing and everything works exactly the way I intended.
Hmm.
Um, so we haven't really encountered that many challenges so far, but I think that collaboration is still something we are figuring out.
Hmm. For sure, for sure. And you mentioned figuring it out. I guess zooming out big picture, then what do you see as like the future of design to dev in your opinion? Like where do you see that going?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, there's so much happening now
Hmm.
between new tools and AI and everything. It's really hard to predict, but I think design tools will move closer to code in terms of the concepts. Like, I think, for example, auto layout is a great example, right? In Figma, where like it's built on top of Flexbox, so it makes sense when you transition like the same structure to code,
Hmm.
or having tokens like shared between design and dev environment. Um, I think while design tools move closer to dev tools and some of these standards, dev tools will probably get better at translating this concept into code.
Hmm.
Um, I think design components and design tokens will get more intertwined between design and code. I think, like, from my personal perspective, what I want is if I change some color in my design system, I want basically a pull request to be created to my
Right.
code base, right?
Yeah.
And if like something changes in my code base, I want to have like almost like a merge conflict in my
Hmm.
Figma files. Like now it's out of sync. It's not no longer
Yeah.
source of truth. But I think all of that applies mostly to products and like apps. And it's a little different story if you work on like marketing websites or landings.
Hmm.
Um, I think
Yeah.
for them, it's mostly like looking at Framer or Webflow. They're so good at just like translating design into code
Hmm.
that I think for like a few simple pages, that's going to be the future where you basically can just design an entire experience in Framer
Right.
or Webflow and not write any code at all.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How do you see like AI, I guess, playing into that? You kind of touched on that at the very beginning. But like, how do you see AI specifically in like your field in design coming in?
I think like design touches like so many things, right? It's like everything um, from visual things to like brainstorming to copywriting to engineering. So it's hard to tell where like one field ends and another starts. I use ChatGPT a lot just to like bounce ideas off or like get some help with copywriting when I'm working on some UIs. Um, I also love AI functionality in Grammarly for, I think it's like more, it's better at like rewriting your text in, um, but while keeping like your general tone compared to ChatGPT, which makes it like sound very robotic.
Hmm.
Um, I use both ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot when I write basically any code,
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to do something where you're not familiar with a library or like it's something like different language. That's always like just such a huge time saver.
Hmm.
I occasionally during like big brainstorming sessions, I used AI and FigJam, which worked really
Right.
well every
Hmm.
time. It just it's not like a final result, but it can provide you with some bits or pieces of
Right. Something
insight
help you put it together.
that otherwise, yeah,
Yeah.
you wouldn't come up with. Um, so that's when it comes to like general product development. But I'm also very interested in how AI can um, kind of extend our capabilities as creators and contributors, right? So tools like Rewind AI or Limitless that basically extend your memory or help you go through like your second brain nodes and stuff like that. That
Yeah.
stuff is super interesting to me too.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to shift gears kind of back to you're talking about like your design to development process. How is communication in your eyes, in your experience, different with devs than it is with other designers?
I don't think it's that different. I think like the ultimate goal between when you work with designers or engineers, it's still like we are all working on the product,
Hmm.
and we are all trying to make the product better. So
Right.
we
Same.
look at the same problem, but from slightly different angles, right?
Hmm.
Um, so, and we, because of our different angles and restrictions, we have like different set of compromises. So like when one designer looks at work of another designer, you can focus on like user scenarios or some just visual consistency or how it looks and feels in general, while engineers will focus on different things like performance and how much uh, like tech overhead or tech depth it will create, like every scenario that designers created, right?
Hmm.
So I think the point and the tricky part here is to find this balance between how we can make the best possible product
Right.
while not creating a ton of technical depth or overhead on engineering side, but
Yeah.
also having things consistent and usable and easy to understand on the design side.
Right. From the design side. Gotcha. Gotcha. So this is a good question, I think, for you because you kind of moved up the ranks and through the years of product design. How does the role of product designer look like now versus what it looked like before? Like, have you seen that change kind of over the course of your career?
Yeah, I was actually recently thinking how like my job title was changing through the years.
Uh huh.
Um, I started working as a designer like almost 20 years ago, and so it was like graphic designer, web designer. Then I figured that like web designer doesn't make sense because I can design basically, at least back in the day, like
Hmm.
everything, like identity, business card, but also website. So I just used a designer, but then I started writing code. So I was using like designer and front end engineer or developer for a long time.
Right.
Then product designer came up, and now I feel like uh, I'm actually probably more aligned with the role of design engineer, at
Okay.
least for like a big chunk of my career, but I
Mhm.
still stick to product designer.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to outsiders versus people in the industry,
Hmm.
um, I think when outsiders think about product designer, they think mostly about, you spend all your day in Figma, like
Yeah.
creating beautiful
Making
gradients,
screens. Yeah.
shadows, and that's kind of like all you care about. Um, and that's maybe mostly accurate description of a designer, but not
Hmm.
a product part of it. It's kind of like missing in that.
Right.
Um, when I think about product designers, there's a huge overlap between basically the work that PMs, product managers, doing and product designers.
Hmm.
And if you look at like design books from 10, 15 years ago, product management role wasn't really established back then. And a lot of the work that like product managers are expected to do today was actually something that designers were like expected to do
Right. Is
10,
the work
15
was all
years ago.
they were absorbing that, yeah, naturally. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I think about the role of product designer, it has like so much overlap with all of that. So it's like talking to users, reviewing support requests, like sales calls, just to get some insight, get some feedback from users.
Hmm.
Uh, Working with stakeholders in a company on product strategy, and then trying to convert that strategy into some vision for the product, right? Like
Right.
what are we actually building? And then working with engineers on building that vision,
Hmm.
and then validating that what we have built back with users to make sure that we build the right thing. So it's this like cycle, and designing in Figma or working on like visuals is just like very small part of
Hmm.
it, especially when it comes to design systems. Because like I feel
Yeah.
like now, if you have a good established design system in your product, you are basically like in many cases like you just assemble stuff from this like Lego blocks, and like
Yeah.
maybe you
Yeah.
create some new Lego blocks in a way, but it's still not as like blank slate creation as it used to be.
Right. Gotcha. Gotcha. So this is also, I mean, you probably have strong opinions about this because this was kind of yourself. But do you think designers need to learn how to code? I guess for like the new designers coming in.
Yeah, I definitely changed my opinion on that over the years. I used to think so that yes, and
Hmm.
like because basically you are creating this medium, and like it's important um, to create like what users gonna use. But again, back to what I said before, I think complexity increased so much. And if like 15 years ago, it was enough to know HTML, CSS, and like Spring Code with JavaScript in some places.
Hmm.
Now it's like way heavier in terms of development process. Like even CSS itself is just like way more complicated today than it used to
Right.
be. Not even speaking of JavaScript, TypeScript, and all the frameworks. So I think it's helpful to know how to code and to understand the concepts, right? But I don't think um, it's important for designers to write production ready code anymore.
Hmm. Gotcha.
This
Gotcha.
this ship kind of sailed.
Right. Right. You got in while it was important, though. That's what you
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
I still like that I can jump in and like do stuff when I want to,
Mhm.
like achieve some specific result, or like I have
Right.
a very specific idea of how
Oh
I
my.
want something to work.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I'm glad that's no longer my sole responsibility.
Yeah. 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 You've moved on past the design engineer part of your.
Yeah, I guess back
Yeah.
to product designer.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm gonna hit you with some rapid fire questions, and I've got a challenge for you. So, describe your
Oof.
design to dev process in 3 words.
Improve, ship, repeat.
Nice. Okay, that was pretty good. I was thinking like, how would I describe like a design to dev in 3 words? Okay, let's see if you
How
do
would
this.
you describe it?
Probably the same thing actually. I now that you put that in my head, I'm gonna roll with that. I don't
Nice.
want to out myself. If you could describe yourself in 1 word, what would it be?
Oh, it's a tricky one. Um,
There's a lot of angles you can go for, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Personality or work or
I think personality, because as humans we are more than just the work we're doing. So
Mhm.
probably curious.
Curious. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I'd say mine's probably similar. I would say like excitable or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
That's
Um,
more like extrovert version of curious.
yeah, yeah. I took that personality test. I am an extrovert, so yeah.
I'm definitely on the introvert side.
Well, I'm sorry if I have too much energy when I meet you at config this year in advance. Um, if you could describe your design process in 1 word, what would it be?
I'm not like a super. I'm organized in my day-to-day life, but not in my process. So probably jazz. It's like improvisation, like it's
Okay.
you. And I think jazz is also a uh, beautiful way to describe it because you work with other people and
Right, you're riffing
you,
off of other people.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not like you just playing yourself. That's not really
Mhm.
it. But like how as a team you improvise and you move in the same direction, working on the same composition, but each one of you doing like your own piece.
Right, right. That's a great comparison. We might have to steal that for some marketing later. Yeah,
All right.
I actually also I played in a jazz band back
Oh,
in high
that's
school.
incredible.
Yeah, I played trumpet. Yeah.
Nice. I
So,
never played any musical instruments, and I really wish I did.
never too late to pick it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
I would start with piano. Piano's the easiest one to pick up. You can learn to read the music on bass and treble clef.
Oof, sounds like the hardest one, but
But
I will trust you on this.
yeah, yeah. You type a lot anyways, so your fingers will be like, yeah, it's similar. Okay, so last thing, you have the MS Paint. I sent you the link. I need you to
Yeah,
share
I
your
do.
screen, and you have 2 minutes to recreate the Zeppelin logo as best you can. Your
Oof.
interpretation of it in
It's been
MS.
a long time since I used MS Paint.
I would hope so. I would hope. I kind of hope that you weren't using MS Paint all these years.
All right, let's see. Uh,
Yeah, when you there
am
you
I
go.
sharing my screen?
Yep, yep. I see it. Looks good.
Now I need to figure out all the tools. So okay, it's orange pencil.
Yeah, I'm starting the time.
Oh, I already started. So
No, you're good. You're good.
I love talking about design tools. We will see now how good I am at actually figuring out a design tool from way back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh, he's got the
okay,
fill is nice.
the feel is nice. Yeah. I definitely did my fair share of illustration in it, like back in the day, like I'm
Mhm.
still in probably high school, but that was a while ago. Can I do another fill? No, it doesn't work. I kind of wish I could like do. Oh, look at that!
Okay.
Some nice shading.
Yeah, a little gradient. I like that.
Yeah, it's very handmade, artistic, and
Yeah. You just passed 1 minute, so you got some time.
okay, good. I think there are some loops, right?
Yep.
Um, I'm probably
That's not bad.
butchering it, but
Are you using a mouse or are you using a
you
trackpad?
trackpad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a trackpad too. I think a mouse would probably be easier, but I don't have a mouse. I don't even want to try this. So,
I have a mouse, but like honestly, I over the years I kind of transitioned to trackpad, and it's like so much
interesting.
easier when you don't have to like readjust the habits when you switch from working at the
Oh,
table
laptop.
to
Yeah.
to just like a laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same reason I stopped using my external keyboards. I just use
Mhm.
my keyboard on my laptop.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
so I think
you're at
that's very
time.
close.
No, that was you that and you were right at time too. That looks perfect.
Nice.
That's very impressive. I would have done far worse, and I look at our logo all day. So
I wish I could figure out the fills properly, but
I
oh
see what
well.
you were going for. Yeah, you were trying to do like the orange fill and then like another.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, that was pretty impressive. I'm impressed. I see why you're a principal product designer and I'm not.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's like a giant coca bean, probably
yeah.
more than Zeppelin, but
Looks good. Looks good to me. I'll let you know the crew's feedback. But
sounds good. If
yeah,
you if
hey,
the team needs a new logo, let me know.
yeah. We'll commission you. I want to thank you though. Thank you for taking the time. It was great to catch up with you. It was great to talk to you again. I hope you had fun. We'll be doing another episode next week, so stay tuned for that. And Eugene, I'll see you at Config in about a month and a half. Yeah.
Thank you, Elliot. It was a lot
Yeah.
of fun, and I will see you next month.
All right. Sounds good. Take it easy.
All right. Bye.